but we're also seeing it picked up versus the Dawnbreaker. Not even able to talk about in the previous game because, of course, they were on the same side, but Bloodright is incredibly good versus these heroes that have one way into a fight. If this Dawnbreaker does decide to ult in, I can only imagine we're going to see the Bloodseeker immediately cast that Bloodright onto him, and that's where the chase to get onto this Bane is going to get very difficult. I feel like FG right now should look for a hero like the Clockwork because they need someone to hunt down this Bane. Otherwise, these Fiend's Grips are going to be incredibly annoying for them. And the Storm Spirit, really good option for them. That is one of your jump heroes to get onto the Bane, in addition to playing very nicely versus the Bloodseeker. Of course, if you rupture a Storm Spirit, all you're doing is stopping him from walking. He can still zip around. Picking up spirits versus the Bloodseeker is always going to feel good. Void Spirit, okay. Astral Step, it's one of those pseudo movement skills. You still take a lot of that rupture damage, but Storm Spirit, complete exception to the rule. Couldn't pick Ember Spirit here because, there is still a Nyx Assassin on the field, but that's where the Storm Spirit will fit in pretty nicely, as well as another one of Sooth's comfort heroes.
Now the Rubik out from FG as well, so the potential to maybe take a little bit of that lockdown on the D2 Hustlers side and sort of spin it around onto their opponents. Quite a lot for the Rubik to take that is going to be useful. D2 Hustlers, though, with the AM pick coming in, and now all of a sudden the FG lineup looks at that and panic is probably not the right word, but they have to be a little bit more concerned with the anti-mage on the field.
Yeah, and it's a hero that, of course, everyone is always eyeing up. It got some very nice changes in 730, just shoring up that early game a little bit more, as well as making the Ags actually something to be scared of, especially in those later stages. I don't think anti-mages will necessarily go for it right off the bat. I don't think you really go for it at all. I think if you can get it off of the Roshan, that'd be the best case scenario for you. But when you see Timbersaw and Storm Spirit, it's a perfect pick. Of course, Rubik Timbersaw is a very annoying lane, but it's going to be more annoying for the Bane than it is ever going to be for the Anti-Mage. Of course, Timbersaw can work around the fact that he's getting his mana burn. Of course, Soul Ring is one of the best items on the hero, as well as you're laning versus a Bane. Stick is going to be fantastic. There's always going to be those Brain Sap trades, but you do have the silver lining being that Anti-Mage will not get completely shut out. Fade Bolt spam really won't put him on the ropes too much, and that's where I think Yuma and Anti-Mage, it's a very classic player-hero combo. I think Yuma's very comfortable in that playstyle, and that's where FG, I still think they're searching for a hunt hero. They need someone to actually find this Anti-Mage out on the sides, but FG, or rather D2 Hustlers, are making the call that you need a carry now. You need someone to stand up versus his Anti-Mage, and I wonder if this Storm Spirit is going to be enough, because right now, this Anti-Mage pick is looking fantastic. There isn't very much lockdown on FG.
Mm-hmm. And the best you could hope for is maybe Storm zips in with the Dawnbreaker ulting onto it, but that still doesn't really give you a lot of lockdown after that combo hits, if it actually hits, especially onto an Anti-Mage. If you don't keep him locked down long enough, he's blinking his way out of there and your combo just kind of falls flat. So if you're FG, you got to look in both directions, and that's a nice ban from the D2 Hustlers side. The Troll Warlord being taken away, that was one of those heroes that could have maybe slotted in there. You're still a little RNG dependent trying to get the root, but taking it away means you don't really have anyone else that perfectly matches up with everything you need. You need the farming ability, you need the damage, you need the lockdown, and the number of heroes who tick all those boxes are, well, not very numerous right now, but FG are going to have to go for something. See what it is. They might just have to rely on the Storm to be the initiator.
Yeah, and that's where maybe for the first time in the tournament, we could see the Phantom Assassin picked up. Of course, it's a classic counter versus the Anti-Mage. Anytime you force the Anti-Mage or any carry hero to go into that MKB early, it's incredibly annoying, but go for the Spectre instead. Okay. An immediate Viper. Okay. Yeah, it feels a little bit
Ouch.
premeditated there, but this is a brutal Viper game. Both of the cores don't want to play versus it. Of course, you are picking Viper into Rubik. Rubik is one of those classic counters where you are always going to give a very good spell over to Mr. King Owl, but at the same time, it's such a good Viper game. It's actually insanely good. There's not much they're going to be able to do. They have to really wait for maybe 15-20 minutes, let him walk all over you, and then try to get a cheeky kill onto him, because I don't think Mr. Jeans is definitely not going to lose the lane, but this mid game looks terrible for them. And this is a problem with the Dawnbreaker again, you start picking some of these robust heroes, and then what do? You run out of damage so quickly on the hero. It's always more about that sustain game, and we're not really seeing teams pick up that burst damage to pair alongside it. So you do have this double global strat where you are going to have two heroes be able to play completely separate on the map, where that is something that I do like that FG was able to do with this draft. Everyone does feel like they can play very individualized. Everybody is going to be off on their own, doing their own thing. But that's where even when they do form up, I don't think these hero pairings feel really nice. We're going to need to see some really good starts for a lot of these heroes. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to get the ball rolling. I think this is a really scary lineup for them to play into. D2 Hustlers kind of got them beat on every front.
I mean, we sort of reacted to it precisely the way that maybe D2 Hustlers did as well. The second that Spectre got picked up, they were just spam clicking the hell out of that Viper. There was pretty much zero hesitation on that selection. You even said maybe they had sort of played it out that way to try and bait their opponents into that pick because they knew what they wanted. They got the Viper, and it is going to take a lot from this sort of FG lineup to try and overcome that, but you never know. Maybe that global lineup works out as you were sort of mentioning, and you don't need too much to maybe shift the anti-mage just that little bit off of his initial trajectory. And then at that point, that's not a guaranteed win by any means, but now you're looking at a slightly different situation if you can slow that AM down a bit.
And of course, with FG, it's always about successful activity. If they can get a lot out of the lanes, it's all about the snowball game. Honestly, for me, if they can somehow get a big level advantage over their opponents, I can definitely see them walking out and ahead. This is a really good Rubik game. That's something to look forward to. There is a lot of spells that you're going to want to be stealing from your opponents. You're playing Rubik versus Bane, always a highlight. Every single time that Fiend's Grip is committed, you have the incredibly easy steal for it, as well as all of Bloodseeker spells and all of Viper spells being very ideal for Mr. King Ao to steal. But that's where we might see a similar situation where if they do fall behind, if they are starting to get out-rotated, the more heroes you bring to these fights, I don't actually know how much better their team fight gets. The worst case scenario for them is they get baited into a terrible team fight. They ulti in on the Solar Guardian dies, you see Duster fall, you see Mandy going in, him falling as well. I'm just worried about the feed train starting, because right now, if Sexy Fat somehow gets stuck behind, and of course a Timberslug game where you never want to see the Timber ever be behind, if he can play around the timing that is really just his arcane boots, his hood, playing on the mid tower around that 10-minute card, I can see them trying to get some activity going. But as soon as they start falling behind on the rest of the supporting cast, they are really prone to feeding to a very, very active D2 Hustlers lineup. I really feel like with the way that Hustlers have drafted, they've got so many lane winners, and then they've got an anti-mage on top of it. It feels like the 4v5 could be very realistic for their team.
Yeah, and it just feels like as well, D2 Hustlers are in a position where they can sort of scrap a little bit better than FG. Their lineup has to sort of have things very nicely laid out before them. As you mentioned, if they start going in sort of staggered, then it's just the feed train getting started. Whereas D2 Hustlers, you've got a lot of delay, a lot of sort of reposition, things like the Carapace, things like the Nether Toxin, the Blood Right that you can throw out and almost not fully reset the fight, but your opponents have to then immediately deal with that while you're free to maybe reposition or buy time for the anti-mage to even join the fight if he wants to get involved. So order versus maybe controlled chaos for D2 Hustlers compared to what FG are going to have to put together. Although right now, we are waiting. We've got, I believe, Suits, who is DC'd at the moment for FG. So that is why we are still paused here, waiting for, hopefully, a quick reconnect for him. But even once he's back in, we have a lot of questions about what the execution will look like for this FG team.
Yeah, and I am concerned because In addition to that, you are playing Storm Spirit versus Nyx Assassin. Of course, one of the better spirits to play versus Nyx Assassin. If you are somehow able to Ball Lightning dodge out that Carapace, it is difficult for a Divine to actually stick on you, as well as the rest of the lineup is going to have a lot of trouble sticking on you. Everyone except for the Anti-Mage can really chase you down to the ends of the earth, but until that point, you should see Sooths being able to make a lot of these early plays. Again, they picked the Storm Spirit into the Bloodseeker for a very good reason. It's free. It's very normal for him to make those rotations in the lane. But that's where, if they do lose any of their lanes, I feel like D2 Hustlers could definitely spin the game in their favor. And it's already going to be an uphill battle. Every single lane is going to struggle a little bit more on FG's side. And that's where, can the snowball even get started, is the big question for their team.
In the meantime, a little bit of back and forth there as they're, well, wondering where the storm is. So apparently there might be an issue here. We've got Mandy getting the admin involved. So his GPU seems like destroyed, burnt. Yeah, that's an issue. If you've got parts in your PC melting, that may have a bit of an impact on performance. So we might be looking at a potential remake here. I mean, we quite literally just started the game, so if ever there was a time where a remake would kind of be a possibility, it would be here. Draft's complete, we know the lineups, but from what Mandy's saying, they would have to go with a stand-in, because Seuss is apparently not going to be able to rejoin.
Okay. I guess we're just going to go without Sooths. That is a interesting turn of event. Man, D2 Hustlers have the biggest string of bad luck when it comes to remakes or irrecoverable games. It just feels like this keeps happening to them. At least it's not their side having issues this time, but
Right.
yeah, I guess we're going to hop out.
Okay. Going to have a remake. Apparently they're going to be getting a stand-in for Sooths, who had some PC issues. So we will be remaking this lobby. It's going to be a quick all-pick remake, so ET and I will be hopping out for a moment. We'll throw you back to that screen. You can listen to some tunes for a minute, but we should be back momentarily with the actual start of the first game. So stick around, folks. We'll be back with the remake in just a little bit. Okay, there we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the BTS Pro Series 8. We had a bit of an issue in Game 1 of this series as Sooths had his computer effectively explode. So some issues that he will not be able to immediately recover from. FG, though, did have a stand-in on standby. Annihilate was ready to go for them, so we are remaking in all pick. That's why, obviously, we're just flying through these selections, but it's going to be the exact same draft that we had before. It'll just be I Annihilate on the Storm this time, instead of Sooths.
Yeah, and what a stand-in to find.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right off rank 56, been streaming lately. Of course, his team taking a little bit of a break from the game. That's why we've seen Boris been playing on black and yellow as their 4 position, but I Annihilate to break onto the scene. I wonder if we'll have him for 2 games here, but not just I Annihilate, but I Annihilate Storm Spirit. So I am incredibly excited. This is arguably his top 3 heroes, arguably his best hero. He plays it every single opportunity he gets on his own team in his own pub. So I'm really excited to see what he's able to pull off, because we really are going to need a fantastic individual performance from this mid lane, not even talking about the problems he's going to have to face coming from this draft, but also because he's laning up versus, of course, Mr. Jeans. I'm sure he's very prepared for this matchup specifically. In addition to that, playing on a team majorly made up of Portuguese players, I hope that there's not too much of a language barrier, but it's going to be interesting whenever you have that breakdown in international teams. And okay, admin chiming in just a little bit there, but I think that's where you just have a fantastic individual performance. Not necessarily put FG on your back, carry them, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult right off the bat for them to play just because of that language difference.
And of course, we do know some of the players, at least, can, you know, speak enough to sort of bridge that language barrier. King RD and Duster in particular, no strangers to that sort of multilingual communication. As that is a bit of a problem. As you saw on the screen, admin came in. Okay. Mr. Jeans driving that home. They only have 30 seconds of pause time in this game because they are the squad that required the remake. And D2 Hustlers letting them know right away. All in good fun, but technically speaking, rules are rules. So if this does go on for the full 30 seconds, they may be forced to resume the game, even with Duster not in the server. Obviously, we don't want that to happen, and maybe D2 Hustlers would step in to use their own pause time if that would be allowed, but this is the downside of the remake. They were able to find I Annihilate as a stand-in almost immediately, but they continue to have some issues elsewhere in the lineup.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of banter back in time or back and forth between Mr. Jeans and Mandy on the FG side. And wow, D2 Hustlers aren't pausing either. That's interesting. Okay.
Of course.
Maybe some less banter between them. Huh. I'm really surprised they're not pausing for their opponents.
It is a little surprising, but at the end of the day, I do always want to point out they are not required to by any means. We've seen it a lot from teams, but D2 Hustlers do not have to make that pause happen, and now they're actually looking for the kill. Duster does come back in, though, so he is back. Hopefully he can remain in the server and remain steady, but yeah. A little strange, ET. As I said, you're not required to use your pause time for the opposing side, but D2 Hustlers, in situations kind of similar to this in the past, have normally been willing to sort of make that call, but now, oh man, King RD, he got away with it the first time. He was able to outrun those heroes, but Yodomi gets in there with the Nightmare, and this time there is no escape for the Rubik, as Monster will get first blood for the D2 Hustlers side.
And it's a difficult decision for Yodomi to make here. Of course, he had to sculpt the Nightmare to actually set up for that follow-up stun from the Nyx Assassin, and I think that's where King RD, even though he had that Observer Ward, he knew what was coming for him. He just really thought that Yodomi wouldn't skill up the Nightmare. He thought there was no way he's not skilling up Brain Sap level 1, but now you give the first blood over to them. It's a slightly unfortunate situation. You give the kill to Monster, so it's not the biggest deal. You would have loved to hand that over to Mr. Jeans, really start the Viper ahead of the Storm Spirit right from the get-go, but not like that lane really needs any more pushes from the outside. It's already going to be pretty nice for him.
Yeah, Mr. Jeans in with the poison attack at first level, just gonna start annoying the crap out of Annihilate on that Storm. So this is the way it's gonna go for the Storm Spirit. We always see him relying on that Remnant regardless of matchup, but now even more so. Anytime he goes too far forward, the Viper's just gonna try and smack him up with those poison attack stacks. So for Annihilates, welcome to the team. You get to lane against a Viper, so have fun.
Yeah, you got to be careful, though. You can actually spin this lane in your favor, and I think Mr. Jeans didn't realize that he had 4 stacks. He actually kept it going, but it's such a skill-based matchup where you can definitely work past the Viper's timings. Once you hit about level 5, there really isn't much the Storm Spirit can do to approach the wave anymore. You're just most likely going to die if you do end up going for it, and even now, it's a struggle. As long as you don't let 5 stacks happen, and I don't think Annihilate will, it's very difficult to throw the lane, especially with what I believe is his bottle coming out to him already, which is going to be pretty nice for Annihilate. That's where we'll probably see him rely on that small camp like we see most mid laners rely on. It's just Mr. Jeans will have way more denies. It's always going to be a struggle.
Mm-hmm. It's not fun, but it's definitely doable for Annihilate here. So, as you said, makes his way over to that small camp, looking for the water rune here at the 2-minute mark, able to lock that down, but Mr. Jeans is drifting pretty far from the lane just for a second poison attack stack. Okay. Doesn't really matter too much. He goes back and he knows the Storm is going to have to take the longer route, so trying to control this lane as best as he can, make sure that he's at least keeping even, if not outpacing, those early last hits. So he's just going to do his thing. The Storm Spirit's farming up in that sort of side camp, and now Mr. Jeans, okay, once again, kind of pushing a little bit forward. He is trying to keep that pressure on the Storm Spirit, but not a whole lot to be done at the moment.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Jeans now, you already saw the Radiant team picking up that sentry, making sure the small camp was going to be available to the Storm Spirit. The problem is once Mr. Jeans hits level 4, we could see him, skill up a point in that Nether Toxin, so he actually needs to be really cautious of Mr. Jeans now forcing in the waves and then farming that small camp away from his opponent. It's just high skill Viper stuff right here, but it is really difficult for Annihilate to do anything here.
Yeah, Mr. Jeans getting more and more aggressive, realizing I've got to push him. You've got to push that Storm Spirit, try and take that control. So he continues to be obnoxious. Meanwhile, up in the top lane, Yuma, well, not doing too poorly. 11-1 is kind of the low mark among the cores, but Sexy Fat and King RD need a big opportunity to really be able to do anything. And with the Rubik, as of right now, you actually see him, he's holding a skill point here. So, well, presumably he just goes for the telekinesis just so that he has that that lockdown available to him, but has not actually done so yet.
Yeah, and it's a little bit strange, I think. And Yudomi actually pausing the game. Okay. I guess you can't really pause the game if you're FG, unfortunately. But I think waiting to see if he could possibly skill up 1 point in Arcane Supremacy, maybe get a kill onto... I can only imagine the Bane here because, as you can already tell, huge stick lane, big sticks on both Yuma and Yudomi, so killing these heroes is really not possible, but Sexy Fat's actually done a really nice job here cutting away a lot of these trees. Of course, they will be respawning pretty soon here, and we don't see him actually getting any points up in the Whirling Death. Of course, going for points in Timber Chain is kind of necessary. Level 1, the spell is just not very good, so you have to look for that second and third point. Otherwise, it really doesn't do that much damage. But if the trees don't exist in this lane, it's very difficult for Yudomi to trade straight into the Rubik Timber Saw lane, because of course you have those reactive armor stacks, and because of the damage reduction from Fade Bolt, it's much more difficult for Yudomi.
Oh my god, I Annihilate. He TP'd to the tower. He was in the west side jungle. Mr. Jeans came up the ramp and started getting the hits in. The Storm TPing to the tower instead of the fountain. He survived on 3 HP. And now uses the bottle to heal back up. But that's a little bold from the Storm Spirit. Feels like the play back to base would have been a little bit safer, but now he gets a little bit more time to farm up in the jungle, but he was the tiniest bit of damage from Mr. Jeans away from being taken down.
Yep, and now Mr. Jeans gets to go mid and actually,
Ooh.
oh, well, slept from the top lane. He's not able to nuke out the mid wave, so this mid lane is a huge sore spot for them. And look at Mr. Jeans. He's just pressing in. He's not allowing Annihilate to do anything. He's playing this matchup really well, but you also hate to see it. I think if Annihilate has a better first 2 or 3 creep waves, this matchup is not nearly as rough, but all of his last hits pretty much from 8 to 26 have been from that small camp or in that upper jungle.
Now you see King RD does finally make his way over, but at this point, he doesn't have the mana for any spells right now. So he's here, he's going to soak up some experience. That is obviously going to be useful, but his presence here isn't going to change too much. And you even see Mr. Jeans, he doesn't care that the Rubik is here. He's still patrolling the jungle because he knows if the Storm is not in lane, Annihilate is trying to find farm elsewhere, and he just has absolute free reign. This is ridiculous. He's moving into the west side jungle, in between the two towers, into the south side. Not only does no one stop him, they don't even know that the Viper is in here right now. They don't have vision because, honestly, why would you be setting up vision at the 5-minute mark? And he's got a TP again. I Annihilate. This is just not fun, and he is still taking a lot of damage in the fountain. He will be able to survive, but God, what kind of game can you have now for the Storm Spirit? He is going to need some serious time and space to try and catch back up.
Yeah, and if Mr. Jeans actually got that 5th poison attack off, he would have died in fountain. And, well,
King
RD.
RD.
See ya.
Supports getting it done. Yodomi and Divide just pushing in. And first it was Mr. Jeans, now it's the supports. The Viper is the trailblazer, but once the rest of D2 Hustlers realize, you know, hold up, they don't have much vision in here. They can just run rampant, and that kind of play. 6 minutes in, both of your supports move into the opponent's triangle and just find an easy pickoff. That is the kind of stuff that's really going to impact you in these early stages, as King RD, he just TP'd mid. He doesn't know. Oh boy. Ooh. Well, he knows now, but okay. Mr. Jeans won't go all the way in for it. He does have the Viper Strike, but he lost vision on the initial cast, and now I don't know if he wants to go any further. There's so many heroes here, and now we start to see that vision coming into play. They really don't have much of a... Wait, those are both... No, they aren't. I'm blind. That's a sentry. Wow. My bad, folks. It's the Op Sentry combo being thrown down. As Mr. Jeans, look at him go. He knows what he wants. He ignores the supports, goes straight in for the Storm, and he's dead. Annihilate knew he wasn't even going to be able to TP out in time, so he just has to leave it alone, but Mr. Jeans has basically made it his mission in this game to just ruin Annihilate's match.
Yeah, and unfortunately for them, it's not like you're going to get a lot of support from the Timbersaw and the Spectre. Until you get a few more levels in either of them, you have to sit here and you have to tank this, and top lane is
dead.
Also, yep, a disaster.
Wow.
It just feels like they're losing 3 lanes right now. Even Monster is pulling so far ahead of Mandy. It just feels like they're running out of options. You even see Mandy, or not Mandy, the Bloodseeker Monster going immediately for that Maelstrom, and he almost has it. 7 minutes into the game, everyone's lanes are so successful right now. The only thing they have going for them is maybe this triple stack in their jungle, but even the supports, they're struggling to make plays in, okay? Jeans?
Big jump onto Mr. Jeans there as the Viper gets kind of stuck in between. He was trying to link up with the supports, but he gets sort of ambushed before he can make that move. That's a big kill for the side of FG. The problem is it cost them rotations from everyone other than the Spectre. 4 heroes moved mid for that kill, so now their lanes are a little bit funky. Sexy Fat is quickly making his way back up top, so he's going to be able to sort of settle back in, but if those are the kind of rotations you need to try and find those kills, I suppose you do have to do it. You don't have much in the way of alternatives, but it doesn't feel good to have to commit those resources this early on. And now, look, Annihilate, he's getting bullied by Divine Llama. He's just going to take away a couple of last hits here and push him from this camp.
Yep, and that's also an issue with the support duo of FG. Dawnbreaker, Rubik are not the most active heroes in the game. Of course, talk about how good of a Rubik game this is. You just finally hit level 6 after taking the mid lane from your Storm Spirit. You're level 6 before your Rubik, before your Storm Spirit's level 6.
And he is dead. The Haunt, though. Okay, yep. Will they commit for this, though? No.
Nope.
That's a blown Haunt. That feels so awful, and this is going to feel even worse. They spot the stack. 2 points up in the Nether Toxin means Mr. Jeans maybe doesn't take it instantly, but with Divine Yodomi here, they're going to be able to seal the entire thing away.
Yep. nothing you can do about it. You just don't have that many active heroes right now. It's a really unfortunate circumstance, and until you maybe get level 6 on Duster, you can't see them do the out heal strat. And Duster, okay, he got him with the Starbreaker. That was really nice from him.
Big plays there to find that kill, just their second of the game, but up top, they're looking for Sexy Fat in exchange, and there's really nothing for the Timber to do. That Mana Void even coming in just to make sure Sexy Fat wasn't going to be able to pop anything like the Soul Ring or the Wand, so it is a good kill. On the side of FG, it's just that they immediately give up the equivalent kill on the other side of the map, but you need something, you need anything if you're FG right now, because this start has been so horrible. 10 minutes in, they're already 2k down, so anywhere that you can find openings. And the good news is, Mandy, on this Spectre, he is still farming. A couple 100 gold behind all the cores on the D2 Hustler side, but at least he is not being directly pressured here early on. That's got to be the silver lining for FG right now.
Yeah, and that is it. That is all you have. Of course, Mandy is going for an interesting build. We're not seeing that Blade Mill build up. I think large in part because of all of the control they've already lost, and King RD even gets cleaned up in the top lane. Again, it's just Mr. Jeans with the Boots of Travel. Every single rotation he's going to make is most likely going to work. That's for bottom. Annihilate's first move of the game.
And they should have this. Maybe not. Monster's fighting his way out of it. Annihilate goes down. Oh, man. And now, yeah, there's going to be the Nightmare on Duster, keeping him locked in place. Yuma just wants the kill. Doesn't want to use the Void, but he will just to make sure it's clean.
And then mid?
Oh, God. Middle lane. Yeah, they jumped in onto Sexy Fat. Can the Timber get away? He's stunned up. Needs to be able to get this Timber chain out, and I think he's going to make it across the river. And he will do so, and the poison attack stacks wore off in time. So he is going to be okay, but pressure is coming everywhere now, and I said before, the Spectre was the one sort of being able to avoid that. That is still the case, but you feel like that may not be the case for much longer if D2 Hustlers keep finding these openings. Speaking of openings, wow, that is one hell of a zip all the way in. Mr. Jeans taken down. Okay, big plays there. They get Divine Llama under the tower as well, so Mandy starts to get involved. Annihilate is willing to take some risks there with that long zip in, but it works to their advantage. But now Monster with the thirst bonuses, he's thinking about it. Wants Sexy Fat, but that's still a Timber Saw. That is still not an easy kill. 24 armor from the reactive, so not going to be easily finished off. But now Monster wants to defend the tower and wants to get the Rupture on demand. He does so. So now the Spectre can't afford to move. Yodomi, though, coming in with that Brain Staff. They need more damage, though. They don't have it. Monster will fall, but the Spectre still can't move. Rupture's... No, it wasn't over. He stepped a half second, maybe, too soon, ET, and it will cost him his life. Mandy's dead. Sexy Fat will now be run down as well, and that goes from looking perfect for FG into a very unfortunate trade-off just on a half-second time difference on that step.
It's still massive, though, for FG to find anything. Of course, the problem is that there is this anti-mage with a completed Battle Fury over in the bottom lane, but that's all they can do. The biggest thing they have going for them right now is this global strategy. You can instantly get 5 heroes on top of you very, very quickly. If they keep playing on the same lane that the Timber Saw ends up in, we can still see these plays made. And
jump onto Yuma, but the spell shield, it breaks, or counterspell, excuse me. But honestly, that wasn't enough. Annihilate does end up vortexing himself, but they're still in there with 2 other heroes to keep the fight out. Yuma was not able to blink himself away, so it gets a little messy at the start, but all's well that ends well. That's a big kill for them, and this is the thing for FG. You mentioned the fact that they're really able to find anything right now is going to go to their benefit, and especially with Mandy picking up the assist, keeping himself relatively safe here as well. Well, it's not ideal, but they're making the most out of the situation that they've been forced into.
Yep, and that's where if they can continue to make those plays, keep the pressure on, you are going to fall behind your opponents. But that's where there are going to be some holes in the draft. Of course, gotta keep talking about how good of a Rubik game this is. He has very potent spells to always steal. In addition to that, D2 Hustlers are very single target. If FG can play the Flood Heroes game, they are going to be able to take a lot of these team fights out from their opponents. I think
he should be
a nice
dead.
steal.
Hold up. Yeah, that Carapace coming in handy, but it's okay. Yodomi says enough of this. We are getting the kill. Has to commit the Fiend's Grip, but while that happens up top, counterplay being put together. They see 3 heroes spot. They go in onto Monster, who they know is alone under the tower. That is going to be more than worth the trade-off, and they may may get the tier 1 here. Gotta wait for the glyph to wear off, but once it does, they're right back in onto it. There's a TP coming in, though, from Divide, but I don't think it's going to matter. The tower should still fall. They need one more hit, but Annihilate, he had to stick around too long. He's going to get jumped in on. And that makes it a little less worthwhile. If they could have gotten that tower just that little bit faster, maybe Annihilate pulls back in time, but if you're D2 Hustlers, at least you're able to salvage the kill out of that one. Still lose the tower, but nice pick on to the Storm.
Mr. Jeans even misplayed there. He was TPing in on the creep. Sexy Fat just wasn't ready to nuke it down. I think if he nukes it down, then maybe the Nyx Assassin is the one getting played upon there, but it's just really easy for him to make that move. But that's still where FG, they can play the numbers game here, and yeah, Mr.
Jeans, what are you doing, bud? That's... What? That's just overconfidence, I think, as he pushes in onto a Timbersaw that was going to be hard to kill. Speaking of hard to kill, Devi's going to give it a go, but they're not able to find it. There's the Rupture, though. He does have the Yules. Yep. Going to be able to throw it down, but Yudomi's setting up. He wants the Brain Sap. He's going to get it. So they do find that kill, but now here's the Spectre into the fight. Bloodrite is going to go down onto a couple, but that is not enough to save the day, as both Yudomi and Devi will fall. Now Monster's on the run, trying to get away. There's Annihilate zipping in. They're going to get the jump down from the Solar Guardian as well for the stun. And that turns into 4 kills off the back of quite literally just Mr. Jeans walking into a death. And it just massively avalanches from there.
And FG, they're doing exactly what they need to do. They're playing the numbers game. They're doing their global strategy. Every single time the D2 Hustlers bring 3 or 4 heroes, FG bring 5, and they win. And that's where you still have to think about Yuma on the other side of the map, who has a free time. But FG are crawling their way out of what was a terrible early start. And it's D2 Hustlers playing into it a little bit. They feel confident. They still feel like they're playing with the lead, but all of that's more or less evaporated now. And they're going for the group up a little bit after the fact. If they grouped up, again, 2 minutes earlier, I don't think any of those kills happened top. And instead, they're giving their opponents a little bit of a shot here. You have an Orchid now finished on the Storm Spirit. The Storm Spirit who is level 4 when Mr. Jeans was level 7. This is definitely the road to recovery. They're doing a really good job of playing exactly what their draft was meant to do.
The initial obstacles for them have been largely overcome. Still down by about 1,000 gold, but that's not a big gap compared to the sort of 3k-ish mark it was before. As you mentioned, Annihilate's got the Orchid. You're still farming up well on Mandy, although it is taking him a little while to catch back up, but as this game goes on, that gap is going to start closing. So if you're D2 Hustlers, now is the time. You got to choose. Do you redouble your efforts, go back in for more aggression to try and reestablish that control, or is this the point where you take a more farm-oriented approach? You can't really cut it down the middle outside of Yuma, just sort of farming up. So looks like they're going for the more aggressive of the two options. Monster moving forward with the supports. Question is, what can they find? If they eye up the middle lane, they do have Sexy Fat here, but Sexy Fat with a Yule, Sexy Fat with a Cloak, it's not going to be easy to bring him down. They do have Mr. Jeans coming over, though, so if they can get the Viper Strike in, that would make things easier. He's going to try to Timber Chain away, does manage to do so. Meanwhile, the Haunt is actually going to be deployed. Mandy will come in now on the back end, but honestly, his job was done once the spell was just thrown out in the first place. Sexy Fat has that pressure taken away. Sure as hell took a lot of damage, but it's not enough to bring him down.
Yeah, and that's where, as long as these tier 1s stand on the FG side, there is still going to be hope. There is still going to be a very easy defense, and that's something that really D2 Hustlers haven't made the difficult decision yet. Yuma hasn't found an opening into a lot of these team fights, and he is really the best person on his team to find a lot of these towers. And okay, they started onto the Storm Spirit, but
they need more lockdown. The silence, though, very nicely done. They need the damage, and they've got it. Yuma in with the Mana Void. Now Yuma blinking forward. Wants onto King RD. Got to be able to take him down for the double. And what else can they get? Further to the south, they've got eyes on Mandy. Can Yudomi get it? Yes, he can. Fiend's Grip comes in. Yuma pushing forward. They've got that extended cast range, and yeah, this is not good for the Spectre. He is going to get locked down and taken out, and big plays. Aether Lens finished off, and as you point out, that Ovs Ward gets him the vision, and that's the play that D2 Hustlers needed to really just reassert that control. Yuma gets involved, and they just kind of clean sweep that one. Devi, though, wanders into the detection, but gets the 2-man stun. He'll set up for another 2-man stun with the Impale. Monster now gets the root into the Bloodrite. He's not going to connect, though. thanks to that Yule Scepter. Big play from Sexyfat to keep himself safe, but what can they get on the back of this? Annihilate zipped in, but Yuma was able to blink himself away. So not much going there for the FG side as they tried to reinitiate, but now D2 Hustlers, they haven't backed off. They're regrouping. They're directly on top of an Obs Ward, though, so this is really not sneaky in the slightest, but I'm not sure they care. If they can't get the sneak attack in, they could at least go for the tower, but the Glyph is going to be pushing them back.
Yeah, and it's absurdly good vision from both sides, and of course, this is the issue of Viper versus Rubik. The wave clear is insane. As soon as you put that Nether Toxin down, of course, you buff up your own magic damage, so that Fade Bolt will kill every single creep wave that ends up walking into it. I think that's where D2 Hustlers need to reorganize themselves, do what they're doing presently, which is put more pressure onto this bottom tier 2 tower than the mid T1, of course, knowing that there isn't Glyph as well, so this push should be successful. But that's where this game does get more complicated. Now that D2 Hustlers are confident in grouping up, the biggest problem right now is just the speed at which they take these objectives. Because of course, whenever you focus this many heroes in one lane, the enemy team, who has 2 global ultimates, can definitely spread themselves a little bit thinner without giving really up that much real estate. That's why this tier 1 mid is still such a thorn in D2 Hustlers' side. And that's where we also see the smoke up trying to catch a lot of these heroes still playing on their opponent's side of the map. But Yuma says enough is enough. Does finish off that tower and does exactly what he needs to do. Yuma, he still needs to be the building hitter for his team, and he's actually rushing this Ags. So that's very interesting to me, because I know a lot of people are still trying to figure out whether it's truly good, but oh, the grip.
They got it. Jumping in onto the storm. Annihilate taken down. Duster, well, stuns himself. Spike Carapace comes in. There's going to be the Impale to follow it up, and this should be 2 kills for D2 Hustlers. We'll see if Monster's the one to get it. Duster, though, oh. He was so close to freedom there, trying to use the Guardian to get away, but the Bane puts him under with the Nightmare before that jump. And Monster will pick up the double. Meanwhile, down bot, Mr. Jeans and Yuma, they're trying to hunt for Mandy. If they could get the vision, if they can find the kill, this would be absolutely massive. But now Mandy does have the Aghanim Scepter, so the Shadow Step could be used to get him away. He's going to try to move towards mid. Devi stuns him up, but there's no one else here. And Devi is actually going to be the one getting turned on, as Sexy Fat and King RD will arrive at the fight. So D2 Hustlers, that's the play you want to try to make, and they're actually still going for it. Nice move from Monster in with the Gleipnir. That's a bit of an early finish on that build, but he's able to get it down. Mandy is rooted, and Yuma comes in with the Mana Void to finish it. Now we have a pause coming out. There we go. Monster is DC'd, but at least before he DC'd, he was able to get out that route to help them find that kill.
Yeah, and it is, I think, FG just having to make that play. You need to get out, and the Nyx Assassin is probably going to be your safest target, but it's still unfortunate. You don't want to be giving too many plays over to the anti-mage specifically, who is still by and large ahead of any core in this game. He is incredibly farmed on this hero. He's going to be incredibly obnoxious as well once this Aghanim Scepter is finished. That'll make it impossible for the backline to play on the side of FG, as well as just giving Annihilate a massive headache every single time he's going to try and go for pulls. He's going to have to be second guessing himself. He's going to have to be very conscious of where Yuma's positioning actually is in these fights. Otherwise, he is just going to blank out. He's going to be incredibly elusive. And it's a problem that they really don't have an answer to. You see Sexy Fat going for BKB. He still needs to be the one going in front, so that way you can get vision for a lot of these jumps. But that's where FG haven't been able to string together a very successful team fight after the few they were able to win. I think large in part because of Yuma's involvement. It's just as soon as he got the Manta style, he's been playing correctly pretty much since that point, as well as Mr. Jeans finishing up that BKB, where these core targets are incredibly difficult for you to find. The easiest one is probably the Bloodseeker, but that's where Yudomi has been sitting behind him every single time. The jumps just feel impossible, especially because you are, again, playing with unreliable heroes. As good as Rubik and Dawnbreaker are, they aren't really the guaranteed jump that you would love from some other heroes, maybe. It's just the relative strength of Rubik in this game is probably what they weighed it against. But again, it's a hero like maybe the Lion would have felt pretty nice to pair up with the Storm Spirit. It feels like a lot of these kills are getting away from them because they have to play around the fact that they've got a Rubik instead of a Lion or a Lena. They don't have that burst damage. They have to play around their opponents way more than their actual gameplay.
Yeah, and the Rubik, as we've mentioned a couple of times in this game, usually in the context of also talking about the Dawnbreaker, they're not overly active. They're not very mobile outside of the Solar Guardian. So, yeah, if King RD had been on something along the lines of that Lion, as you mentioned, maybe the Clockwork as well, you would have that sort of more active play. Although King RD, he's doing his best. He's got the Blink Dagger up on the Rubik, and you see him working, or I think he finished off recently, the Aether Lens, having the pieces come out to him. So maybe that's what it takes. Maybe with the Blink and the extended cast range, he can do a little bit more. But for right now, it's not been easy for him to have that sort of impact. Meanwhile, Monster is back, reconnecting, and looks like we are going to have the match resumed. D2 Hustlers down to about 5 minutes of their pause time remaining. So they're able to get him back in. Hopefully there are no further problems, and that is a nice haste rune pickup from Yudomi. If he doesn't get it, Annihilate was going to be able to catch him.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate kill to give away, especially right after a pause. Maybe not everyone being settled, but what can you do? He gets away from you, and I think now what they need to look for is you used that haunt before, of course, whenever the Spectre was unable to avoid that death coming in from Yuma, but you have the Aghanim Scepter now completed. We're seeing the Ame build coming out from Yuma. Get as active as you can now. Just continuously trying to get kills on these heroes, pushing out waves. If they can set up, this is the strategy. If you can find these easy kills in,
big play on the Yudomi, okay. There we go.
It's free.
But now they have to be a little bit wary of the return play. Device coming in. He's going to get the stun down. There's the Gleipnir out for the root into the Blood Right, but they're only hitting onto the supports right now. So Duster, I mean, he will go down, but King RD TP's away, and all the cores are long gone from that one. So it's a one-for-one charade at the end of the day, but if you're FG, you need to be finding kills like that. Get in, find a quick pick onto someone like the Bane, and then get out with minimal casualties.
Yep, and that's where we will see D2 Hustlers struggle just a little bit when it comes to actually taking a lot of these objectives, and Mandy is actually taking a really risky position here. If his opponents aren't getting set up on the other side of the map, the best way for him to get out of here is just the Shadow Step. Fortunately for him, I think Devi is saying that there might be heroes behind him. He doesn't want to give up that play, but the more they feed into this Aghanim Scepter on the Spectre, the better it is going to be for FG, especially Mr. Jeans, who's showing underneath this Observer, a really important Observer that they were able to place here. But I think after Yudomi's death like that, dying behind his tier 2 tower, it's pretty obvious that they had something there, so it's a very free D ward.
Able to take it away. That leaves Mr. Jeans free to continue farming in the jungle, although he did get clipped by the scan there just as we see a trio smoked up and moving their way over. But by the time they would make a move, it looks like Mr. Jeans has already regrouped with his teammates who are going for the 4-man smoke play. They leave the Viper out in front mid to maybe act as kind of the bait, or at least the hero that's going to make FG think that this rotation isn't coming. And well, Yuma's getting very close. Can he find a target? He can't, but well, the rest of the team sure can. They do get in there, but they can't really decide who they want, and now not really sure what's going on here. King RD, though, does get hit up by the stun, so they will be able to find that kill with the Mana Void, but honestly, that could have been worse. Those supports really got in a scenario where you had a couple of cores, or at least one core who was sort of hanging out nearby, so they're able to get them away. They will only lose the Rubik, but now this is a problem. Down bot, Leo gets caught. Devi's able to hit him up with the stun. There's going to be the TP out from the Spectre, though, and since Devi used his initial stun, there was really nothing more to do. He tried for the Carapace there at the end, but the Spectre will not be stunned, and Mandy gets away.
Oh, and Yudomi.
Okay. They're going to try to make this jump. This is a little bit risky. He's got the illusion to remove the Nightmare, but now he realizes, yeah, there's other people coming in. The Yules... Well, Yules was onto an illusion, unfortunately, so the Timbersaw tried to save the day, couldn't really do it, as Mandy will fall. And now look at Yuma, he's just going to blink forward. He wants to Annihilate. The Root comes in from the Gleipnir as well, and this Storm has to get away. Able to zip himself out, but Sexy Fat got hit by the Rupture. Meanwhile, the Rubik actually stole it. Turned it around there, so... well, that is really going to prevent that from turning into anything bigger. Both Annihilate and Sexy Fat were in danger in the second half of that fight, but they're able to save both of them. The problem is, they still lose Mandy at the very start.
Yeah, that was a really unfortunate beginning to that fight. And Mandy going for that immediate play after finishing the Orchid, he was trying to play around the fact that he could get aggressive for just a few moments there. Unfortunately, it looks like Duster might be next on the chopping block. Divide just needs to find a stun.
Stun comes in,
Yep.
Blood Right's there. King RD is going to do his best to run interference as Mandy haunts back in, looking for the ban on the backline. Now Annihilate zipping forward, throwing his silence out onto the Nyx Assassin, and they might be able to pick off both of these supports. They got Divide, they got Yudomi, but now they need to deal with the chorus. Monster, Yuma, and Mr. Jeans are all in here looking for that engagement, but they're getting pushed back. Good play from Sexy Fat, immediately getting onto the front line, but the DOT is still too strong. Duster will be taken down. Sexy Fat now losing his mana. Mana Void comes in, not enough to finish him off, though. Now there's going to be the stolen stun with the Impale. They zip forward with Annihilate as well, and they've taken Yuma down.
Yuma, you do not need to do that. Oh.
Mandy asking.
Okay, Mandy.
I do not believe they have pause time, so he's going to have to try and play through the lag that he claims to have. Tried to go on to Monster, not going to be able to get to him just yet, but look at them continue to chase here. Monster is trying to get into the tree line. He's looking for the TP. If they get the vision, well, they don't, unfortunately. The Impale comes out, but it's not on the mark. But still, that's big for FG. It still leaves them down 7k, but the ability to get Yuma there kind of baiting him into that secondary fight is absolutely huge, and we've been mentioning all game long how big of a Rubik game it was. He was able to make that happen, but now Mandy getting hit up in the top lane. Duster has to come in with the Solar Guardian to try and bail him out, but he's going to be successful. Duster TP's away. The Spectre should be doing the same in just a few seconds, as that TP scroll will be coming up. So, signs of life from FG. They're starting to fight back a little bit more and a little bit more effectively at that.
Yeah, and I think that's where Sexy Fat with the BKB really doing a good job being that frontliner for his team, as well as FG playing around the fact that they could constantly make these plays. Even though it's a little bit crazy from Mandy, every single time they give them a shadow step, Mandy is going for it. He is going to continuously run at his opponent, whether or not it is the right play. He keeps attempting it, and he's definitely forcing a lot of D2 Hustlers to group up a lot closer than they want to play. They want to be a 4-protect-1 draft where Yuma is able to play on these side lanes, but it feels like then FG have built themselves up to the point where they can actually find a lot of these fights and engagements. And I think top lane, it's just Yuma giving away himself a little bit too easily. He had to use a lot of those blink fragments to actually kill Duster, and I think that is the worst case scenario. You put out all your blink fragments, you give away which your main hero is. You need to play almost like a pseudo PL with this build.
Jumping onto the Viper, Mr. Jeansville pops the BKB. Can he get away? Well, initially yes, but they hit him with the dust, so they now know he's here. The BKB will be wearing off, and Mandy's able to bring him down. They also got the kill onto Divide Llama there, so this is getting pretty big, and King RD, I mean, he starts it, he blinks in, he actually blinked past the Nyx, who he didn't know initially was there, but that allows him to get the telekinesis into the Impale onto that Viper, and that kicks off the entire fight.
Yeah, and that's where Hustlers, they need to be more conscious with how they're positioning. Of course, when you're playing consistently as 5 heroes, you need to be very concise with your objective taking because you are going to lose the map, and I don't think Hustlers are comfortable with playing in only 1 out of the 3 lanes, but at the same time, you have to respect FG's ability to bring 5 heroes in a very short amount of time. They are running their global strat really nicely. If they can keep turning what appears to be a 1v2 in the lanes into a 5v2, they win these small skirmishes, and they're continuing to build up net worth on pretty much all of their heroes. It's where everything is going to be built up on Yuma, and Yuma is still a monster when it comes to these team fights. It does feel like it's still a problem that FG are not entirely equipped to deal with in its entirety, but it is really difficult for the remaining members of D2 Hustlers to actually do their jobs. It's where objectives like Roche would be very important for them to take away, but unfortunately, because of the way that they've drafted their heroes, there isn't a real big catalyst for them to ever get it for free. That's where the anti-mage does fall short. He's not one of the better Roche-taking carries, as well as Bloodseeker, who is just damage at this point. The way that Monster is built up, he can't frontline for his team at all. I think that's where Mr. Jeans has unfortunately ended up with the short end of the stick, where he is getting caught out in a lot of these team fights and just has to sit there and die for a lot of his BKB duration. It's where you're finally seeing FG able to play around these BKBs, but also kite around the Rubik, or rather the Viper, a lot.
It's, well, a tactic that's working incredibly well for FG, and now Duster, there you go, gonna get jumped in on, but King RD with the shard is able to pull his teammate quite literally out of that gank as he has the friendly telekinesis to play with, but there's still going to be the Fiend's Grip, so Duster should still be falling, but problem is, yeah, Rubik's got Fiend's Grip. That's dangerous. He's got Fiend's Grip, he's got an Aether Lens, he's got a Blink Dagger, so he can jump, he can hit anybody, and now, all of a sudden, if D2 Hustlers are aware that that's what they gave up, this Rubik now has to be a priority. You cannot jump in onto someone else and leave King RD on that backline to jump you, as we have a DC. Unfortunately, it's on the FG side who are out of pause time, so they are required to resume the game, and Duster is currently dead, so him being DC'd isn't going to matter until about 20 seconds from now, so hopefully he can get back in that time frame. Sexy Fat, though, is getting hit up by the Nightmare in the middle lane. They get him with the Impale to lock him down, and that's just a quick and easy kill. King RD, though, did get the Fiend's Grip. Now they need to make the jump. Annihilate coming in. Mandy gonna jump forward as well with the Haunt. They've blown up Yuma. That does cost King RD his life, but that's exactly the play that they wanted, exactly the scenario that T2 Hustlers had to avoid, and it's gonna get a little bit worse here. The Solar Guardian's gonna bring Duster into the fight as he was able to reconnect, and they're hoping that they can run down further heroes. They've got both Mr. Jeans and Monster in their sight. They're gonna go for the latter first, getting the Bloodseeker, but Mr. Jeans, he came back in. He does have a BKB, though, so he should be able to TP himself out of this one, but I don't think he needed that BKB charge. He could have just kept on running to the north and he would have been okay, but that is a big win for the side of FG. You do have to sacrifice King RD, but you get 3 kills, and now you get into the Roche pit. And actually, Sexy Fat, he did have to buy back there, but that buyback is going to pay off if they can take Roshan.
Yeah, it was incredibly well choreographed from FG. You had the Rubik waiting for such a long time there. They committed so many stuns. They had to walk up to the high ground to right-click that Rubik to death. There was no interrupt in that channel time. It kept him disabled for such a long amount of time. In addition to that, Yuma committed his Mantis style so early there. And with how many silences they've been able to get on FG, the double Orchid and the Mindbreaker on the Spectre, they just make the jump instead. And D2 Hustlers, instead of playing with their anti-mage, they were so concerned with breaking that grip that they end up not casting any of their spells on the heroes that ended up killing Yuma. So that team fight got so spread out, and now with an Aegis handed over to Annihilate, the game starts to get more and more in their favor. And once these items really start coming out from them, of course, you have to play now a little bit more defensively on the Timbersaw. Not having buyback is a little bit scary for you, but full Mantis style on Spectre, this is becoming a little problematic, and you can't stay here. Okay.
Yudomi taken down. Here comes Monster and Yuma, though. They're going to get the root in place, but look at Sexy Fat, keeping him at bay, just sort of holding them at arm's length, but he's going to take a fair bit of damage. He'll look for the TP home, but while he TPs out, his teammates are going to clean up the other side of the fight. They've taken down Divine Llama. Duster, though, is almost certainly going to die here, and this should turn into a 2-for-2 trade on those supports, but, well, it really just feels like FG, despite losing just as many heroes and a little bit less gold than their opponents, their cores are starting to hold their ground better and better. Sexy Fat knew the exact moment to push in, to keep Monster and Yuma away, and then back out without really putting himself into direct danger. So if he can continue to run interference like that, Annihilate's able to come in, they get the Spectre in there as well, and as you mentioned the last time, they've got 3 silences to work with between the Orchids and that Mindbreaker, so they can find kills pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's where you do see the BKB being queued up by the anti-mage, rightfully so. He can't afford to die as soon as he commits in with that Mantis style. The Mantis style is still the majority of his damage, besides that Mana Void. Oh, another one. Another huge fight.
In the river, jumping in, Yudomi is trying to get away with the Glimmer Cape, the Nightmare onto himself. It's not going to be enough. Annihilate finds the kill, but now, oh, where else will they go? Sexy Fat's been put under by the Rupture, so he can't exactly go chasing, but King RD just got the... No, telekinesis onto Mr. Jeans was more to push him back rather than pull him in, but the buyback from the Bane is going to get them forward, but Mr. Jeans gets hit up by the Vortex. BKB was not activated in time. He is going to throw it down now, but with such little health, he's going to have to use that magic immunity to fall back. Yuma, though, doesn't want to give up. Devi tried to push forward as well, but the Impale will miss. Sexy Fat is trying to get away. Yuma, though, blinking forward. They're back under the tower now, and here comes the Spectre, looking to rejoin potentially with that Shadow Step, and that's going to be the jump in. They're looking to get Divine Llama. They silence him up initially. Annihilate now, zipping forward, getting down the Vortex onto Monster, pulling him in, and the fight has broken up. D2 Hustlers cannot go any further. At least they're able to get Yuma and Mr. Jeans away, but it felt like that was maybe a little bit greedy for them. I don't think they had the means to get Sexy Fat in any sort of short window. And the deeper you go, the more you leave yourself exposed to the reinitiation from the Storm.
Mandy is also somehow continuously able to exit these fights, go back to the fountain, completely regen up to full, and then gets the shot out onto more opponents. Oh, they grip a creep.
And that's a disaster. Annihilate now comes in. He wants the Viper. They're going to turn around for the Bane kill a little bit faster, but they need back in onto Mr. Jeans. Can they lock him down? Yes, they can. BKB is not up for 5 more seconds, and Yodomi, maybe if that Fiend's Grip is applied to the right hero, that changes things. But as it happens, that fight's an absolute disaster for them. And meanwhile, on the other side of the map, well, Yuma's trying for the split push play, sending the illusions in there, but this is the nature of the game now for D2 Hustlers. They went from feeling like they were at least somewhat in control to now split pushing against a lineup that is still holding the Aegis in Annihilate's hands. As what happened
they're trying to make plays.
Sexy.
Yeah, Sexy Fat.
BKB, though, there's going to be the jump in from Duster as well, and Divine Llama will be taken down. Yuma's just got to try to get away. He does go for the Mana Void, though. That will bring down King RD, and maybe he can actually keep the fight going. BKB is really doing work for him. Sexy Fat has nothing left, but there's going to be the jump in. They get the Vortex down, pulling in multiple heroes. Monster's dead. Can they get Yuma away? He's got to try and blink. He will be able to get out for now, but Shadow Step back in. Mandy wants it, and he's got it. What a fight from the side of FG. It looked like Sexy Fat was really just kind of being left to rot there, but Duster jumps in with the Solar Guardian that buys time for Mandy and Annihilate to rejoin, and D2 Hustlers just don't show the proper respect. Yuma gets the kill onto King RD and then thinks he's kind of home free, but not even remotely the case with that second half of the fight breaking out.
And it's a fight that didn't need to be instigated at all. You end up taking a 2v5, and of course, you have BKB completed on Yuma, so you feel pretty much invincible, but that was so well timed from FG, keeping everyone alive there. We saw the value of Duster on that Dawnbreaker. He kept Sexy Fat alive for such a long time, despite the blood right, despite that he was getting kited around just a little bit with that silence, and it felt like after the Mana Void onto King RD, maybe they were able to find that burst onto the Timbersaw, but instead the fight completely turns upside down. They get to continuously find these 5v5 engagements. I can't believe the D2 Hustlers are still just beating their heads against the full 5-man lineup when they are knowing that they're split. That was with Viper and Bane still respawning from the play bottom. They can't keep feeding into this playstyle. It is just way too effective on the FG side. They keep on getting baited, they keep on overestimating their damage, and for the first time in this game, FG have the gold lead.
Yeah, they have crawled their way into a position of strength. So momentum very much shifting here as we're coming up on that 40-minute mark. And if you're D2 Hustlers, this is always the thing with this kind of scenario. It's not all about the numbers, because you would think, okay, they lost their lead, but they're only down 2K. That's not a big deal. But you can't just go back and suddenly say, you know what, let's just go back and reestablish that lead, get back in control. You have lost so much of that momentum now, and your opponents aren't really as afraid of you as they used to be. There were so many times in that fight, Sexy Fat even, especially, you saw when he was caught in that middle lane, he just stood there. Not because he gave up, but because he knew, I need to keep them here for my backup to arrive in the right spot. So maybe he dies. In that instance, he doesn't. Either way, though, he knows, I'm going to stand here and set up this secondary engagement. Whereas before, we saw a lot of those heroes trying to TP out or just back away, the Timber Chain plays to try and escape. So FG don't have to be quite as concerned. They've got enough firepower on their own side where they feel they can take these engagements.
And Arcane Rune DD, I believe now, on the Storm Spirit. Roche is going to reform the map. That's where the next objective is going to be for both these teams. But you can look at Mandy. He is so comfortable with his position in this game that he's able to buy out an Abyssal Blade. He's not even playing around buying back, haunting in. He's just saying, whoever I haunt on is going to die with this Abyssal Blade. And okay, big fight.
They make the jump. Who do they want, though? They're going to go for Divine Llama first. Easiest kill on the map for them at the moment, as they have that Nyx Assassin isolated. They will be able to find the kill. Meanwhile, Mandy made a bit of a speculative play, a little bit further up to the north, just to make sure D2 Hustlers were actually falling back. It doesn't lead into anything, but that is the way that he's playing the game. You just pointed out, he bought out for the Abyssal, right? So he doesn't care about the buyback. He didn't even care about the actual kill itself there. He pushed further forward with the haunt, knowing his teammates were going to be able to clean things up.
Yeah, and there's just so much actually in the FG tank right now. Because of all of their successful team fights, unfortunately some of their supports have fallen behind a little bit, but everyone is hitting that level 25 mark very nicely. They have so many levels from the successful kills where you're really struggling to see a lot of the D2 Hustler strength anymore. Monster was finally able to build himself up towards that BKB, something that I feel like should have been finished a much earlier time. I think if he had that BKB 20 minutes ago, this game would look incredibly different, as well as Mr. Jeans finishing up that Satanic. But when you go for the right-clicker build on Viper, you need some form of attack speed. A lot of times we saw a lot of those Vipers, specifically no one building it up from that Maelstrom that you would always go early game, especially because Maelstrom Dragonlance feel really good on this hero. But the biggest problem right now is even though Mr. Jeans has a massive health bar, he will still get shredded by this Spectre. If the fight drags out, if he's stuck without BKB, I just feel like the stuns after BKBs and the way that FG are able to bait out their opponents and re-engage in a lot of these fights in top, okay.
Sexy Fat with the BKB, jump in, the Electric Vortex connecting onto multiple thanks to that Ags upgrade. Sexy Fat, though, he's still falling, but they're able to get him with the Invis. He gets away with the Cloak. Now the grip is down onto the Spectre, but they need to be able to actually finish the kill. They haven't done so yet, and now Annihilate back in. There's going to be that Electric Vortex pulling everybody back into the fight. Mr. Jeans is dead. Yuma, he's actually going to get stunned up. He silenced as well. He can't get away. Yuma will fall. Monster now alone in the fight. He's trying to bring down Mandy, and they do get the kill as Yodomi lays out entirely for it, but the cost is just way too high. They get Sexy Fat, they get Mandy, but they sacrifice 4, and now, well, without the Spectre, I don't think they can take Roshan, but Roche is back up, and they have control of the pit for the time being. King RD, spotted by Devi, looking for the kill, but there's going to be the buyback.
He's going to buy back. And I thought that he was going to go for it, but it makes complete sense. If your opponents are not going to make any move on the map, then you might as well get this Aegis now for your Spectre or for your Storm Spirit. I feel like after committing buyback, you have to give it over to Mandy, but we'll have to see. Unfortunately, there's no cheese. That's one of the unfortunate facts for the Storm Spirit, but this is still them continuously winning these fights. It's so impressive what they're able to manage, and okay.
They'll give both.
A win condition has been set, though, for D2 Hustlers. If you can somehow take out Mandy, that is Spectre without buyback for 7 minutes. But at the same time, Aegis Storm, the game is only getting more difficult for you as it goes on. It doesn't get easier from here on out. They need to find some crazy play with Devi. And Yodomi has to be even more patient than he has been. We saw him steal grip again. You weren't able to get the Satanic or the BKB off on the Viper. That cannot be allowed to happen. If that happens anymore, I feel like we're getting to the point where the game is going to start to break. High ground is going to be the objective for FG. They haven't been on D2 Hustler's side for pretty much the entirety of the map. None of these T3 towers are even missing any HP. Okay, mid's missing a little bit of HP, but the fact still remains, if you lose any of these fights, nobody is playing around buyback still. They can't really afford to. They still need to look for later power spikes, but the problem being, I don't know how much stronger this Viper and Bloodseeker get on their current trajectories. We're seeing a Silver Edge and a Butterfly coming out from them, but it just feels like everything on FG is way more efficient.
Yeah, and honestly, even if they find those items, I'm not really sure that they're the difference makers, and that's assuming that they can find several thousand gold between the two of them to make those purchases, and doesn't look like FG want to give them that time. Full 5-man smoke's going to get them pushing forward. You would assume in this instance Annihilate will be the first man in, but it's actually Mandy who makes the move. They're in onto Mr. Jeans. No BKB out yet. He will pop it now. Meanwhile, Annihilate actually goes into the backline looking for Devi Llama. They hope to bring down that Nyx Assassin. Not able to get him just yet, as Devi will blink away. And this fight actually continuing. Mr. Jeans does get run down, and now what do they do? Without the Viper, can they hold? They're trying to get in there with Monster, but Monster is very rapidly running out of HP, but they did get the Fiend's Grip onto the Spectre. They need the kill. Mandy will fall, but can they get the rest of the lineup out of the fight now? Yodomi is very low on HP. He will fall. Monster is trying to set up here onto the Storm. They did get the stun down into the root, into the Mana Void, but Annihilate able to zip away. Monster is going to be the one to go down. Devi Llama in trouble as well, and all of a sudden, you've got the Anti-Mage by himself. There is a buyback, however, from Yodomi. He's going to try to rejoin, but without the Fiend's Grip, he's going to be significantly less effective. And you actually see he's not going all the way in. He's just looking to make sure Yuma gets out. But Yuma, he's not going to back off just yet. The Mana Void's back up. He did hit that talent for the cooldown reduction. So he was thinking about making another go at it. We'll see if he can get the play, though. Who does he want? Duster is looking like the target, but Annihilate in. There's going to be the silence into the Vortex. Yuma, nice play with the Manta, though. Going to be able to jump himself away, but he's still on the run. King RD not letting him go, hitting him with the Manta style. But Yuma, I mean, he's got that blink on such a low cooldown. He continues to get away, and he actually cuts the tree down as Sexy Fat was about to hit it with the Timber Chain. So I think that clears enough space. Yuma's going to be able to get himself out, and D2 Hustlers, well, they survive, but the problem is, we mentioned that was sort of a win condition for them if they could take down the Spectre. They give up so much to get that kill, though, that it's effectively a reset as opposed to an actual catalyst for a comeback.
Yeah, and you still see they really struggle to kill Yuma in a lot of these fights still. He's very obnoxious, he's very tanky. He didn't go for the spell magic resistance, but that's where if he can get a Mana Void off, 2 Mana Voids off in these fights, he has so many targets on the FG side. That's something they can definitely play around. The problem is, it really feels like you're dragging Mr. Jeans across a lot of these team fights now. He's such an easy target every single time that Haunt ends up going. He can't even BKB TP out anymore because of the Abyssal Blade being completed. And that's where the best thing for D2 Hustlers is the fact that there isn't buyback on Spectre. You see the fear in FG whenever that Spectre does actually get cleaned up there. I think the fight that they took after was even a little bit crazy there, but if they didn't take down Monster and Devi, I think there would have been a situation where they go 0 for 5 versus the Bane and the Anti-Mage there. That's just how strong Yuma is when there isn't a Spectre to keep him in check. Unfortunately, whenever the Spectre is alive, plays like these get to be made, and Devi's got to be so careful. He got the Shadow Step.
Good Yules, though, putting that illusion up in the air. So they will back themselves away for now, but they've got to be so careful, as you said, with the Spectre back in. That attack could come from any angle and at any moment. So very much cautious right now. Defensive, just in case that maneuver comes through as Duster... Okay, Carapace is going to stun him out, but not a whole lot to be done there. That's not the opening D2 Hustlers want. Oh my god, Yunobi. Thinking about it, doesn't want to commit for it, though, and at that point, that's not just whether he wants to commit for it, that's whether or not he actually gets jumped in on himself, as he was dangerously close, but D2 Hustlers going to be able to get away. Meanwhile, this smoke play will get the rest of the lineup down into the bottom lane, but outside of maybe a little bit of farm from Mr. Jeans, there's not a whole lot to be done here. They're just clearing that out, but you see the Viper building himself up. He opted for the Eye of Scotty play instead of that Butterfly. So, well, I don't know. It feels like the Scotty may give him more in the way of immediate benefits to work with. And you need this Viper to be doing a little bit more for you as Shadow Step comes in. Monster's getting hit up a little bit, but not going to be the full commitment.
Yeah, and you also see Mr. Jeans having that Aeon Disc. He's going to keep it locked unless he actually gets Abyssal Bladed. That'll be your get out of jail free card. Usually Aeon Disc is pretty bad versus Spectre, though, because the Haunt can sometimes trigger it, and then you get your what is a very long cooldown now, especially once it gets popped 2 or 3 times. Popped by a Spectre Haunt illusion, it feels pretty much like a non-factor after that point. So this first Aeon Disc is actually going to be really key for him to win what I can only imagine is going to be another fight around the pit. I think both teams need an Aegis to actually take any objective on the other side of the map. The vision is just too good from everyone right now. I think D2 Hustlers are terrified of throwing in their own woods. That's why their vision is so defensive. Without it, I think FG, it just takes one smoke for them to get in between your lines, and then you finally get that telekinesis into another spell, and there's nothing you can do after that point. There's no hexes being built up by anyone on FG thus far, but okay, Sexy Fat got ruptured.
That's an interesting E-Blade. The Duster hits his teammate up with it. That does sort of make it a little bit tougher to deal with the rupture damage, but no one was going to be able to get in there for any sort of right-click play, so Sexy Fat walks away, pops the Bloodstone active to regen up pretty much all of that health, and that's a bit of an underwhelming rupture, and it is worth noting for Monster, there is no Aghanim Scepter, so it's not like he's got that double charge. The cooldown's still not that big of a deal, but it's not throw it out anytime you see anything kind of scenario. They will still have to wait a little while now while the rupture is down, but while they do that, you do see Yuma doing his best to maximize the farm. He is pushing out that bottom lane, just trying for a little bit of a split push game here, but now he has to try and get away. There's going to be the haunt. Mandy not catching up to anyone just yet, but there's the zip from Annihilate. They did get in onto Yuma. Can they keep him locked down? Yes, they can. Telekinesis coming in. Abyssal Blade stun there as well, but the BKB was activated in time, so Yuma's able to get away, but Mandy wants to keep it going. He's going to jump forward. Yuma has to blink again, and he is, once again, able to get away, but you see D2 Hustlers, they're just on the retreat the whole way through, not even thinking about a turnaround right now.
Ooh, that was a really good dagger onto Divide. They still see him for a little bit more, but it looks like it will actually back off, and that is a pretty big win for D2 Hustlers. You get the Haunt on cooldown, you have to wait a little bit more before that rego. The problem really is just this Shadow Step cooldown. It's the reason why this Ags is really dominating. It's now you have a baby Haunt if you do find another pick in one of these side lanes, and I think right now the best thing that FG can do is reset their focus onto the Roche Pit. A nice little illusion rune spawning for them as well. And okay, got too close to the high ground, but okay.
Nice force stabs though, but the damage is still coming, yeah, as Yuma's able to send the illusions forward. So they will be able to get that kill, but now, well, Shadow Step's just going to be there as a bit of a distraction, sending out that illusion to sort of break up the fight. So, well, you lose the Dawnbreaker, not the biggest deal, but that Dawnbreaker's dead for a pretty substantial amount of time, 80 seconds, but the buyback does now come back up. So if Duster's needed, he can get back in, and he has the ult coming back up in just a second, so he could buy back and then ult his way towards the pit, but D2 Hustlers realizing that, they're going to try to push in first to get the Abyssal down. The Rupture's going to be there as well. The Mana Void comes out. There's that buyback from Duster, though. Jumping back into the fight. Meanwhile, you see Annihilate zipping his way forward. They're trying to get onto Yuma. They've hit him up now as Mandy comes in with that Abyssal Blade, but Yuma was able to activate the BKB. He's still fighting his way through this, looking to get King RD. King RD, though, with that Aeon Desk, will be able to get himself away for a little while his teammates just go all in for the Viper. They've taken down Mr. Jeans. They will sacrifice the Rubik, but now they want more. They have a silence onto Yuma, but all these heroes starting to run a little bit low on HP, including that all-important Spectre. Mandy cannot afford to really go down right now. He will be able to back away. The question is, does Yuma go back in? The answer is hell yes, he does. He goes in for the Abyssal Blade stun. Duster, though, self-hitting himself with the E-Blade, so he's going to be able to last a little while longer. His teammate, though, not as fortunate. Sexy Fat will fall, and then Duster picked off a moment later. Gem hits the deck, and D2 Hustlers, even with the buyback from the Dawnbreaker, were able to take control of the pit. Unfortunately, the timing's not great for them. They're still 40 seconds away. Mandy! He got it. Did have to use the full-on haunt to make sure it happened, but that takes the Bloodseeker off the map. One of a oh god, one of a few heroes who has his buyback though, and now they actually caught Mandy. Nightmare comes in, Mr. Jeans hits him, but Annihilate zipping onto the backline, looking for the Viper, popping his own BKB, dishing out the damage there, but Yunomi comes in, Fiend's Grip is there, Yuma comes in with that Mana Void, and Mandy will be taken down. He's dead for 95. They're trying to get onto Annihilate as well. He has no mana. He can't zip away. He's stuck in the river, and he will be finished off. Yuma picks up the double, and D2 Hustlers back-to-back massive wins in these fights, and now Roshan is coming back up just as Yudomi was standing there waiting for it.
9,000 gold in Yuma's bank right now, and I honestly don't know if he takes the Aegis here. He could slot out his Battle Fury pretty nicely, but still, what a fight. You need to focus on the other members of D2 Hustler's side. For the second time that they try to commit onto the Anti-Mage, and they're unable to find it. If he's able to blink out and re-go, he doesn't even have the best health regen. It's not like he has a heart or a Satanic. His sustain isn't fantastic, but you are constantly dumping so many spells into these blink fragments, into heroes that aren't the Anti-Mage, and Yuma being able to pick and choose whenever he goes in. Unfortunately for him, that wasn't a massive Mana Void onto the Rubik. If that hits onto anyone, I think they die a lot faster, but it's a 16.5-second cooldown. He constantly is able to throw those out, do whatever he wants. In addition to that, he's level 30. He is just the most jacked anti-mage he could possibly be right now. I think FG, they really need to focus on killing everyone else besides Yuma, and then refocus onto the anti-mage, because this is the second time in a row a fight only goes bad because they dump so many resources into an anti-mage that very simply blinks out. If they don't have that stolen Fiend script, I honestly don't think they have enough lockdown coming from everyone. The BKB is just a little bit too strong right now for them, especially with how long these fights are going. FG really need to retake what they have. I don't think they can really afford another misplay like that.
It's either go in onto Yuma if you have the lockdown. If you don't, focus everyone down first, because as strong as Yuma is, I mean, he's not tearing through your entire lineup by himself before you can kill off his teammates, which I know it still feels like that's the capability based on the plays we've seen from Yuma before, but a lot of the times his damage is still coming from the big mana voids. He's able to get in there because, well, FG are blowing so much of their mana trying to sort of go for the kill onto the AM himself. So the prioritization target-wise is going to have to either shift, or they need more lockdown. They need the Stolen Fiend's Grip. They need somebody to maybe get something along the lines of a Hex. As you see, I Annihilate has it queued up, but still several thousand gold away from finishing.
Yeah, and it's where those luxury items, whenever you were ahead, you're really going to start to miss an item like that Hex for Yuma. I think you might have been able to bust this game wide open on FG if you have one of those secondary items just a little bit sooner, where finally as well, we're seeing Mandy lose this matchup versus the Viper. Once you have that Nether Toxin cooldown, it feels like without this BKB, he's unable to stick around and actually do the damage his hero's meant to do. He has to actually rely on his right clicks, which aren't that strong right now. It feels like right now he can't sit in these fights. In addition to that, you're playing versus Nixags now, and old
Duster is not able to get himself away. Tried to use the Stormcrafter to get out, but he is going to be taken down, and he doesn't have buyback, so he is going to have to sit on the sideline and watch this one go down. 90 seconds before he can get back in. King RD, though, trying to fire away from the tree line, throwing out that Fade Bolt. You see the Spectre throwing the dagger in there as well, but it is a half measure right now. They can't really go all the way in for the fight, especially not into Yuma, who has 2 lives, so you've got to try and pick at the edges maybe, but no, that's not going great for them either. You see this Timbersaw getting hit up a little bit, forced to fall back. Sexy Fat, though, may not be getting away. They're going to be able to lock him down with the Abyssal Blade. There's the Mana Void out. Sexy Fat dropping low. I Annihilate, though, onto the backline. Goes for the Vortex. That's going to force a bit of a reset here, but now Sexy Fat has to go back to the Fountain and doesn't have either his BKB or his Bloodstone active. And D2 Hustlers, well, they got what they wanted. They grab the racks, they'll back off. They're not going to get too greedy, even with the Aegis in their hands. Mandy, no.
That's really unfortunate. That's a 9-second BKB charge that you don't have available to you now, but at least D2 Hustlers are already backing away. They're not pushing the issue, but I don't even know if they're able to get a good fight anymore. They need to now rely on their pure damage, it feels like, coming in from Sexy Fat and their ability to get on these heroes on the backline. But Yudomi is so quick on that Bane. He has been constantly getting that Enfeeble on to I Annihilate and freaking out the Storm Spirit, because if he gets gripped, he knows exactly what's coming next. Unfortunately, there's no BKB on Yudomi, so it's not like he can ever stick and hold it if the grip does come forward. But that's where I really think with the lack of disable on FG, we're finally feeling like they're not able to chase down any of these heroes on D2 Hustlers. It feels like if they can get set up, there is so much put on the ground, whether or not it's the Bloodright spam or it's the 2 Nether Toxins you have constantly going. We have AoE Brain Sap now from Yudomi. This game is just going to continuously get more and more difficult for them. They need to get a picture-perfect start, and that's either killing off Mr. Jeans at the beginning, or that's finding Divine or Monster, and D2 Hustlers are not presenting them with these targets.
Shadow Step sends an illusion into the fray, but only going to provide a minor distraction for D2 Hustlers. As soon as they're done with that illusion, they're going back to the push, but look at the wraparound here. You got Sexy Fat Duster and I Annihilate looking to maybe just catch someone by surprise, and they've got Yudomi. They're going to jump in. Abyssal Blade stun is there, and Yudomi's already out of the fight. They blow him up right away. Now they're trying to get in onto the Nyx Assassin as well, dropping him down to about half HP, but the Yule Scepter will keep him up and running. But now here comes Duster in with the Solar Guardian, stunning up one, as Divine Llama will be taken down, but now Yuma's joined the fight. He's looking for the damage. They get the Abyssal Blade stun onto Mandy. That Mana Void, though, really doesn't do a whole lot, and Divine, he feels the need to buy back as he sees this fight ongoing. He's back in, Yudomi's back as well, so you've got D2 Hustlers at full strength, but they only get Duster with those buybacks, and that wraparound play, that worked so perfectly for FG. Obviously, they don't win the entirety of the fight, but you just sort of cut the supports off at the knees, and now King RD gonna have to try and get himself away, but look at I Annihilate in with the nice might as well be one, though, as he hit up absolutely everyone with that Vortex.
Yep, and that's how they need to start these fights, especially now that Yudomi and Divide don't have buyback. It becomes even more crucial, but that was a perfect jump from them, and they were even set up for it. You see the vision coming from D2 Hustlers. If they did not react instantly there, that would have been a perfect go, or rather a perfect re-go from D2 Hustlers, and that's where
There's a jump in again.
Plays.
They got Divide a second time. They're going to get Monster as well. Sexy Fat picks up both kills, and D2 Hustlers, you have got to be careful here. They are feeling their grasp on this one, starting to slip away. We do see the buyback from Monster, though. He's going to try to rejoin. Yuma now coming in as well, but I Annihilate onto the back line. Silences up the Viper. That's going to force Mr. Jeans back. He is still holding on to his BKB, but he'd rather not use it right away as Sexy Fat continues the charge. Bloodstone active is going to help him heal up, but not through all of the damage, as Monster will bring him down, and now... well, maybe they've gone a bit too far. Not maybe. It's definitely. They're going to be losing quite a few heroes here. King RD does have the buyback. Duster, though, not as fortunate. Tried to jump into the river with the hammer, but didn't quite have the angle. He's trapped on the high ground. He will fall. And now that's two of their heroes dead with no buyback. The Timbersaw is getting his back off cooldown, but he doesn't have the money.
Yeah, he bought out for a refresher, and this is nightmare now. You need to get your waves out.
In onto King RD, not able to find the kill just yet, but the Gleipnir from Monster is going to be there. The telekinesis, though, locking him down. Silence is coming out onto multiple heroes. That is going to reset the fight as Z2 Hustlers back away, but only far enough so that Yuma is going to feel safe taking the tier 3 tower. And they're going to get the entirety of the racks here. The melee goes down, and they can't pause.
Well,
there it is. Yeah.
It is. It's not like they're trying to pause. It is just automatic from the system. Yuma even unpauses, which is a little bit funny, but the problem at hand right now is that Mr. Jeans is a little bit too obnoxious anymore. He is just able to set up now. Got an Ex Machina as well, so his hero is completely rounded out. The tier 5s actually have an effect, and okay.
They jump. They've got Yuma. He's so low. They need to finish him, and they've got him. Yuma's dead for 100 seconds. Now Mr. Jeans going to be the target, or actually maybe not. They're trying to get Monster instead. He did just use his buyback, and they cancel the TP. Abyssal Blade stun coming through. Monster has to get away. Not going to make it out. Now they can focus on Mr. Jeans. King RD has been keeping him busy. It is probably going to cost Rupic his life, or maybe not. He's able to get himself away, and now Mr. Jeans will be dropped. Yudomi did get in at the last possible second there to get that brain sap for the kill, but D2 Hustlers, not quite showing the respect. I Annihilate zips in, gets the Vortex onto everyone into the Haunt play, and, well, it's still not going to be easy by any means, but they are fighting back here on the side of FG, and now, 63 minutes in, we've passed that hour mark. We are getting some tier 5 items.
Yeah, and it's a really strange go for me, honestly. You're going without a Vilama, and very simply, it is the Stolen Nether Toxin coming in from King RD. It breaks the Anti-Mage. He takes so much spell damage from the Storm Spirit, and you get taken out. And now, look at I Annihilate's item right now. He has 11,000 gold after that fight. He has been saving up for this sheep for a while, but that is still a crazy influx of resources that you now get to play around. Not just that, of course, there's no way they could have known about it, but not having the Timbersaw or the Dawnbreaker for such a long period of time, it really feels like D2 Hustlers lost their easy out of this game, and they even scout out the Roshan. If they want, they could start it. I don't necessarily think they want to keep up here, but look at the T5s they were able to get on FG as well. You've got Arcanist Armor, you've got Ex Machina now on Sexy Fat, so that's going to be another BKB, another Bloodstone, another Shiva's Guard, on top of a Refresher, which he already has. It just feels like now the easy out for D2 Hustlers, something they were building up for the past 20 minutes, is no longer available to them.
The game has turned on its head. Roshan will fall. I Annihilate takes the Aegis. Cheese into the hands of Sexy Fat. Mandy will be the one to grab the shard, so got himself the double Shadow Step, double Haunt play, 2 BKBs, 2 Abyssal Blades. You get the picture. This Spectre is going to have a whole lot of resources to throw into this fight. Bloodthorn for him as well. I believe the Storm started working towards one and actually did finish it off. So you have 2 Bloodthorns. You've got a Hex. There's just so much right now that FG had that... 15 minutes ago, these were all sort of pipe dream items. We didn't realistically think that they would be able to get them, but some incredible fights, some maybe overextensions from D2 Hustlers, and this is a very, very different match. And now, Fallen Sky actually picked up as well. I Annihilate might not want that for himself, but I don't know. Maybe the Dawnbreaker, although he's already got that armor, so kind of feels like he would prefer to hold on to that. But it's a point now where FG you are spoiled for choice. You've got tier 5 items. You are picking up such big normal item pickups as well. So feels like they're ready to go. And if you're D2 Hustlers, you have to be so careful. If you lose another fight, this entire thing could turn on its head.
And of course, there are some winners.
Trying for Yodomi. There's going to be this... Well, Solar Guardian doesn't actually hit on anything, but the Haunt from the Spectre is going to allow him to pick a target. He goes in onto Monster, hitting him with the Abyssal Blade, but they do see Devi in the river as well, but at this point, they've got to pick somebody. Just find a kill, because Yuma is actually going to be able to isolate King RD on the other side of the fight. They get that kill. Now, Sexy Fat is going to get put under by that Fiend's Grip, but he's able to eat the cheese because it's canceled, as Yodomi will lose that Fiend's Grip timing. I Annihilate and Mandy both jumped in onto him, but they need more. They're looking for the kills, but Yuma starting to get pretty big with that Giant's Ring. He just pushes his way forward. He'll take down Duster. They're onto I Annihilate as well, and they burned through that first life, but they still need to deal with the Spectre. Mandy was able to pop that Refresher, so he does have the Haunt back up, or did have the Haunt, as he was able to use it immediately, and now they'll make their move. They're on to Yuma. They hit him with the Abyssal Blade stun, but the Manta Style is going to get him away for now. He's turning around, trying to get onto the Spectre himself, and Mandy, all of a sudden, he's by himself. I Annihilate goes too far away. He's not going to be able to help out. He TP's home instead. And D2 Hustlers, okay. There was a moment there where it was looking a little bit concerning for them, but they win the fight. Buybacks are basically non-existent. Mandy had one. He is going to deploy it here. That is the final buyback currently available for that FG side, and it's down to Mandy and I Annihilate really just hold off against everything that D2 Hustlers are going to throw at them.
It's at least going to be Megas here, but I also feel like the game is very soon. They outran their support. They had no vision for the Nyx Assassin after that point, and you don't have King RD breaking the Anti-Mage. You run out of damage. And
Mandy just... He did. Mandy. Okay. That's a little awkward. I Annihilate, though, coming in, but
That's
where's the
game.
Vortex? Yeah, not going to happen. He tried for it. I believe it was blocked, and that should be it. Mandy will go down. The GG hasn't been called just yet, but realistically speaking, the D2 Hustlers have managed to do it. Devi Lama will be taken down, but the Ancient's been exposed once the Glyph wears off, and they will be able to finish it. But ET, credit where credit's due here. FG, they put up a hell of a fight, and they almost stole that one away. D2 Hustlers fortunate that they don't lose that opportunity.
Yeah, that game honestly could have turned on its head at any point there. It was a messy game. There were a lot of pauses. There were, unfortunately, a lot of issues with players actually getting in, playing, but I think goes to show what a good draft coming in from D2 Hustlers. I think they played their advantages really well, but they dropped the ball completely in that mid game. They were playing versus a 5-man team that continued to find 5-man engagements, and they lost their lead. It felt like the only person accelerating forward at that point was Yuma, and that's what they played to. Unfortunately for the side of FG, they do one too many jumps. I think they get ahead of themselves in that last final fight. They outrun both Duster and King RD. Both of their supports get picked off by the Anti-Mage. They lose that structure that when an enemy team pushes high ground, you have just given to you because you're defending the high ground. They stick their necks out too far, and then they get executed. Unfortunately for them, even Devi Lama was so obnoxious there, and you don't have vision for him. He gets to sit completely safe in his little bubble there. That push bottom, I think, really only goes terribly because you have King RD stealing the Nether Toxin, and you don't have Devi Lama making him fear getting stunned. They just really outplay themselves in that one ultimate fight. And you don't have buybacks. You blow the gun too early, and then you fall behind. And then suddenly all these heroes get to push in. Unfortunately, the Viper versus Spectre matchup ended up being way too much for Mandy to fight up against. Fortunately, you're still doing damage, but none of your illusions are. Desolate isn't part of the game. I think there were a few chances there for them to just play off of their Aegis, and then were actually able to win the game. But unfortunately, the team play out from D2 Hustlers was just a little bit too solid, as well as never being able to march onto the enemy side of the map. I think every single time FG were able to win their fights, it was always on their side, so there's no buildings at stake. D2 Hustlers, as much as it felt like a close game, they were really in a safe position pretty much the entire way through it.
Yeah, FG had opportunities to draw things out, and obviously the match goes for over an hour, so they succeed on that front, but they would have needed to really string together a couple of those victories to really fully swing things back. That's why we kept saying, you know, if they win the next fight, it could turn on its head, etc., etc. We never quite saw it, but the fact that FG even had aspirations to try and mount that comeback tells you just how sort of strange that game got. But at the end of the day, if you're D2 Hustlers, you do get the win, but next time around, they're going to want to do that a little bit more cleanly. And there will be a next time around because, in case you all forgot, that was game 1 of a 2-game series. So these two squads are going to be going at each other again. Highly doubt we get another 60-minute game, but you never know. I didn't think that the first match was going to end up going that long, and FG were able to sort of draw it out. So going to be entertaining no matter what. But the question now is, what changes do we see to those drafts? Because anytime you get to an hour-plus long match, a lot of conventional wisdom kind of gets thrown out the window. Now you wonder what bits and pieces of the strategy do both teams feel were still of value for them moving forward.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. Of course, it's hard to play a game that long and then immediately start back at 0. Usually after we see a sick game like that, we see the 15-minute stomp, but I can only imagine both these squads, they don't want to give up another game. And for having a stand-in as fast as they were able to get Annihilate, I think they did a really good job on FG.
And we'll have to see if Annihilate will be standing in for them for game 2 as well. From the problem they were describing, Seuss' computer may have actually suffered some damage, so that may mean Annihilate continues to stand in for them moving forward. For now, though, we are going to be hopping into a break. We will let these teams sort of take a little bit of time before we throw them back into the fray, but game 2 is going to be coming your way in just a couple of minutes, folks. So stick around, and we'll see if game 2 lives up to the hype and excitement of game 1. So we'll see you in just a little bit.